T-minus 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hey folks, welcome to our Christmas special. It's not really a special, it just happened to be the same day, but we're releasing this podcast on Christmas to you with good tidings, happy wishes. Hope you're having a great day and week. We've got some Star Citizen for you, and I'm joined here by a good friend of the channel, AbdiYohan. Welcome onto the show, dude. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I live in Minnesota, so we're kind of having a very non-snowy Christmas, and that's very sad. But
That's what I'm
by the time
seeing,
this
man.
episode comes out, we'll get some snow. We'll see.
I see pictures from Edmonton. I saw pictures from back in our place in Turkey, like all these places where it's normally snowing and there's just barely anything on the ground.
There's nothing. It's like everyone keeps saying, "Oh, this is a nice spring we're having this winter."
I feel like this is the fifth or sixth year in a row that we're all going to be like, oh, this never happens.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, man, those trends, man, those trends.
That's too bad, dude. But happy December to you, anyways. I love the month. How's it been for you so far?
It's been great. I'm just about to head out on PTO, so I'm gonna have a week off. Might do some streaming, might do uh, some video gaming. So I'm honestly very stoked to have a few days off to just chill and celebrate with family.
Good to hear, dude. You gonna be playing any Star Citizen?
Yeah, dude, I think I'm gonna have to stream some Star Citizen. I don't normally do FPS gameplay, but I streamed last night and I started doing the FPS grind in ArcCorp, and I got my butt handed to me. Let me tell you, I did a consignment mission solo, and that was a mistake. That was just straight up mistake. Shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, they can
Need to
like
go
either the AI will kill you or the glitches might, and
for real.
that
For
can
real.
be rough on your own.
The game was surprisingly smooth. I had 17 server FPS, and
Oh,
frick, dude, it was. They were on point. They
yeah, they'll
were on
mess you up.
point.
They'll mess you
They
up at that point.
they really will.
Yeah, I've
So yeah,
been
next time I'm bringing some people in with me.
solid, dude. I've been enjoying the game this past month, and obviously there are plenty of good games to be playing, but like Star Citizen sometimes can have a rough end of the year. And I'm glad that they were just able to get a pretty decent patch out with some new features, not everything we wanted, but like it's fairly stable, at least from what
For
I've seen.
real. Yeah, it has been. I've been having a pretty decent time. I think there are always some like weird little things, but I feel like there's nothing that's super game breaking or super like, oh, this should not have been like pushed out. I've heard some people say that, but I feel like they've done a couple hot fixes in the last few days, and
Yeah.
honestly, I'm ready to just like spend some time in the verse and chill out, and it's working all right for me so far.
Yeah. I think when people are expecting them to just drop a patch and leave, it's nice that they drop the patch early and then can do some hot fixes before the holiday break.
Right. The question
Um,
is, do you think this will change the narrative for years going forward?
I do.
Probably not.
I do.
You think so?
I
Okay.
think this is indicative of kind of where they're headed as a company, and we'll talk about that a little bit today. But yeah, I think that I think people remember the harder times at the end of the year more than the good ones. We've had good patches. It
Yeah,
just depends on like what's going on with the game at the time. And right
that's fair.
now, if it's not a bad drop right now, when they're trying to test replication layer separation and PES was just put in this year and server meshing is on the horizon, like all this instability is possible, I think that they
Hmm.
could probably keep it decent at the end of every year from here on. It
But
seems
yeah,
to be their goal.
I think they've definitely learned, and I think that they're very aware of the eyes that are on Star Citizen right now. So I think they're trying to be more strategic. They've got the project managers. They got all sorts of people to make sure that let's try to align these features for earlier, so that when we get to the end of the year, um, maybe we're not in as tough a spot. And I hope that that's the move going forward. We'll see.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking today about a lot of that. The last episode I did solo. That was good fun. And I talked about the different highlights of this year and how I felt about them. Today, though, while we're going to talk plenty about the features coming in 2024, I wanted to hit the big beats with you more from a community perspective. What are people thinking of the game now that they've seen this year? What are you thinking? What has shifted throughout this year as we've seen certain ups and downs? Because there's been a lot. So we'll kind of talk about that whole idea of like whose eyes are on them now and how has that changed throughout the year.
Right.
Um, But before we finally jump in, I do have to ask one question before we get started, because I ask this of everyone first time they're on launch sequence. How did you get into Star Citizen? What games did you come from, and like how did you get dragged into this whole thing?
Yeah, it's funny. The last time that I was on a show, it was Citizen Central with some really awesome content creators, um, and we talked about what it's like to take a break from Star Citizen and stuff like that. Um, so it's interesting. My history is I backed the game back in 2015. Um, it was like July of 2015. I can't remember exactly what it was that brought me in because I keep looking at the content that Star Citizen put out then, and it was mostly just like chairman posts and stuff like that. Um, so I think it must have been like a PC Gamer article. I'm guessing that like came out, and I was like, okay, this is fascinating. Like this is kind of the game of my dreams. I played Mass Effect to death. I played, KOTOR, Half Life, Halo. I was really
Okay,
big
okay.
into. All right, like
I hear
really
you.
big
Yeah, it's like
into
calls out to my
Counter.
heart.
All right, yeah, Counter Strike was a big thing for me growing up. CS 1.6 was a big one for me before it was ever on Valve or on Steam. So um, lots of different like aspects of games. Like I was never like all one way. I'd play Spyro as much as I'd play Counter Strike. Like I have a Nintendo Switch, and at the same time, I'm not against playing Battlefield 4. That's the last one that I
Cool,
really
cool.
really like.
Yeah,
2042
I
is
feel you. I get you.
2042 is all right. I should give 2042 more credit, but so all sorts of games. But what brought me back to Star Citizen, because I played for a couple years, but only off and on. My computer, like most people in 2015, like no computer could run Star Citizen really well. So
Yeah.
took a break for it for a while. A lot of life happened in that time. Had a kid, lost that kid to hypoplastic left heart syndrome. I'm not saying that for people to get sad, but more of the context of in 2021, or actually at the end of 2020 with COVID happening, um, I was really depressed and was looking for escapism, honestly, just looking for a game to play. So I started playing Destiny 2 with my friends. Actually, before that, we played Borderlands, but then we are like, we need something a little bit that will just kind of keep going. Destiny
Hmm.
2 was the thing. So we were doing raids, we were doing strikes, we were doing all sorts of things together. Um, but it always came back in my head that I was like, man, I just wish that this was a little bit more, that I could just get in that ship and fly.
Hmm.
Like I want to get in
Yep.
that ship and actually do something and like shoot in that ship and then get out of that ship, walk around the ship, all that kind of stuff. And then I remembered that I had this game that I backed so long ago and was like, all right, let's see what this game is like. So I turn on Twitch like most people. I see Space Tomato there. It was January of 2021. I think people were streaming the first version of Xenothreat. So I was
Huh.
like, all right, I guess this is time for me to jump back in. I downloaded it again. I got in the ship, completely got wrecked in Xenothreat, typed in chat if someone could come and pick me up. And someone, like Emergent Gameplay, under a firefight came in, picked me up. And I was like, from that moment on, I see what this game is about. It's about people playing together or playing on their own, whatever they want, but eventually big things happening in small places. And that's what sold me. That's what brought me back.
Man, that's a journey, dude. Can I first say my condolences to you
Yeah.
with your son? That is got to be the worst thing that can happen to a person. I'm really sorry, man.
Yeah, no,
Um,
it's not easy. It changes a person, but you have people around you, that keep you going and that keep you seeing the light. I have a daughter now. She's healthy. She's 2 years old and a ton of energy, and that's a big part of my Star Citizen journey too, because it's the reason why I don't stream like 5,000 times a week.
that's fair. That's fair, and
Rather
that's
spend time
awesome.
with
And
her. Yeah,
since I've known you, you've always shown a positive front and been a joy to talk to. So I'm glad to see that you have that energy, and I'm glad that Star Citizen was able to help you with that. That's an awesome
absolutely.
story, and it's crazy to me that like any little sort of situation in a game like Star Citizen like that, you just pick somebody up from space, that could be the moment that completely changes how they feel about the game. It can also go the other way too. Like somebody could have a glitch and a box can kill them after all of the stuff they've been doing, and boom, game's done forever. I'm never
Right.
playing
Yeah.
this
Someone
again.
pad rams you, and you're like, I'm never doing this
Yeah,
again. But
yeah.
But yeah, no, I all the right things came into place, and like years later, I got to meet you in person just last like a couple months ago, and
Yeah,
you realize how connected and how big this community is, and how wholesome it can be. And man, it's unique. It's
it's
very
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 cool.
much unique.
Yeah, that's been the best part about it. I mean, you sound like you're a lot like me. You came from a lot of the games I did. I always say I didn't grow up on spaceflight games. I wasn't a freelancer player. I didn't do the. I played one like Jedi Starfighter game, but I am like you, Mass Effect, Coder, Halo, FPS, RPGs, things on your feet. I think
Yep.
a lot of people miss how many folks come to Star Citizen with that sort of mindset and are very interested in the parts of Star Citizen that don't have to do with flying.
Absolutely. That's I mean, like I think that's one reason why Arena Commander this year was made as big of a splash as it did, is because for as you know, you have people that want to do the in-flight stuff, in Atmos stuff, whether it be in space or whatever, but you also have people that want to, do gun rush and just
Mm-hmm.
gun rush forever.
Yeah,
There's
dude.
a lot of people who love that.
Can you imagine when Arena Commander starts to have like salvage and mining and engineering and like you can just do an actual industrial game loop in a closed system like that?
It's gonna be such a leap. And it's funny because I feel like it won't take very much to get there, because I mean, even just 322, the ability to get into a friend's turret and just go take down an Idris in Arena Commander, like just like it seems like a small feature, but it has such reaching connotations to it that I feel
Yeah.
like everyone's it changes the game, just like this small thing that, well, it seems small to us, but probably took a lot of time to develop.
Yeah, no,
But
no kidding.
but it's huge. It makes a big difference for us.
So the year overall, 2023, was a pretty big year. But it was turbulent. There was just so much that happened this year.
Yeah.
Um, I want to start by getting an idea of what your thought process was around Star Citizen in the beginning of the year. January, February, March, looking at PES and all of that, and kind of the year ahead. What were you thinking was going to happen?
Wow, that's a big question. I mean, I'm like everyone who's watching right now. I listen to launch sequence. Watching morphologists, all that kind of stuff. You hear the beginning of the year predictions, and sometimes they're more critical, and sometimes they're more hopeful. Um, yeah, you hear a lot of different things, but I think what ended up happening was um, we just didn't hear anything for a while, and that became kind of the steady drumbeat. We were in 317
Hmm.
for a long time, and there was a lot of testing. um, and I think eventually we all kind of got freaked that, like, is this going to be another year where things just keep getting kicked down the line? Are we actually going to see anything come out? And then bam, PES came out, and it was, for better or worse, a splash. Like everything, it turned
Definitely a
it turned a lot of.
splash.
It was a splash. Both, it was both like scary. There's all, and at the same time, uh, exciting to see the potential of what was to come. And we kind of had to endure a lot at the beginning, but there was it was a major pillar. It was a major pillar, and we saw what it was like for another major pillar to come into the game, and that was very interesting.
Yeah.
I think it got me a little bit freaked about what we would see going forward. It kind of seemed like things were slowing down because of it. But then the end of the year, like, stuff started ramping up. So I was hopeful, and then kind of freaked out, I guess, at the beginning of the year, and that we just kind of got led along for it, honestly. I feel like from thing to thing, it was up and down and up and down, and then eventually, I feel like we got to this place after CitizenCon where we were all just kind of hyped.
Well, there was certainly a time there where I think a lot of people, there were different camps of people. Some were kind of the mindset that the update cycle had changed. 318 had broken things and things were not going to continue as normal. Were you more
Mm.
subscribed to that idea that maybe things were actually changing permanently, or were you thinking that they had just hit a hiccup and they were going to get back to things later on in the year?
To me, it seemed like a hiccup, but a hiccup that might have like echo effects, I guess.
Hmm.
Just because uh, maybe the people that were working on one particular feature so hard to get that working that would affect some of the bigger features that were supposed to kind of come down the line. I think the beginning of this year is when we had the Road to 4.0 videos? Question mark.
Yeah, we had the one about audio, and then we had one about
hmm
building interiors and one about server
And,
meshing.
and then it just stopped.
Yeah.
Um, and that was like I feel like we were like, oh, could 4.0, like it was kind of on the table, 4.0 this year, like 4.0 this year. And then I feel like 318 happened, and we were all kind of like, I don't think this year looks like what any of us thought this year would look like. Um, I think expectations kind of changed, and we all kind of had to kind of readjust our expectations.
Hmm.
And that kind of just kept happening, like that, the readjusting of expectations, because um, like anytime you would think that, oh, 318 has slowed everything down, they put out another big thing, like, oh, guess what, structural salvaging is here, like or salvaging in general, or like being able to loot ships, and ships having loot on them, um all these things that really did change the game in some major ways for people. So um I feel like anyone who thought they knew exactly what was going to happen this year, and who would say that they were right, I think I would have a healthy amount of skepticism as to their viewpoints, because
Yeah.
it was hard to predict anything this year.
Nobody could have predicted all of this. I mean, even the letter from the chairman at the beginning of the year. Do you remember that?
Yeah, wow.
Remember the things that were on there
Right.
expected for this year? I think that
Right.
proves that like PES really did mess things up.
hmm
Was there any point during the summer that we were just talking about uh, when you were on Citizen Central? People
hmm
were like talking about wanting to take breaks, and some people took like content creators were taking breaks from the game. People were
Right.
kind of taking a step back. Was there any point during that period when you were thinking, uh, sorry, when you were thinking that when you saw things start getting better, like at what point around then did you actually think, okay, they've fixed things, we're back on track, maybe this year won't be as bad as these last couple months seem to make me think with 318?
Well, I feel like, was it like 319? Did they do a 319 one? Because I feel like
Yes.
somewhere in 319 things felt better.
319.1,
Um,
I think, was probably the first one that felt like it wasn't dragging
yeah,
us behind the car on the highway.
right. And I think that that's when I started thinking like, we are at least back on track, at least, and hopefully in a good spot moving forward. Um, so yeah, I think I think I would say that, like, 319 like this year more than any other year, I started playing with other people, and not just like people in GII, but like streamers like Yo-Yo Meg, who is an amazing streamer. Please go follow her. The Soul Citizens represent Soul Citizens.
Yeah, go
um,
check out Soul Citizens for sure.
yeah, of which I am a member. But just like playing a lot more with other people, and having things to do with other people, like the salvage loop, being able to put things on other people's ships and move them around and stuff like that. I think that's when I started seeing that like 319.1 isn't just fixing what was broken, but establishing a new going forward. That there was a potential for the year to recover in a way that was actually very exciting. So I think that's about when I started believing that that could happen.
319 was a weird one because it like wasn't a new patch, but it did bring in the new player experience, which I think was actually
Right.
kind of significant.
It was, and it still is. I've I don't know if we're. Let me just think. Let's talk. Just want to make sure that I don't get too far ahead of us. But just I this year, the people that I backed with in 2015, my in real life friends. I'll just say, like, without getting too much into it, because we might talk about it later, that this was the first year that I actually was like, yeah, if you want to, you can start, like, testing the waters and seeing how it feels.
And what made you feel like that? That was different from the other year.
So kind of what I was talking about.
Just things to
I
do.
got. I'm sorry. What was that?
Just things to do, like you were
Things
saying.
to do, and talking with other, and playing with other people and having roles. Because that's what they were waiting for. They're like, I remember in 2016, I sent them a picture of the freelancer that I had bought. with some birthday money that I was given, and was like, "Look, there's 4 seats here. There's a spot for every one of us." And they were like, "Cool, let me know when we can actually do something." And it's funny how that's still not 100% the case yet. Like
Yep.
engineering isn't in quite yet, but there's other things you can do in other parts of the ship. You can have a loader in the back. You can have someone in the turret. You can have people who are running, like defense and stuff like that while you're doing that, or taking down ships, or running salvage. So there's just more as a collective to do.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that feels very different than previous years.
The physicalization of cargo and the ability to interact with it can't be understated, I think, or can't be
It, but it,
overstated
but
rather.
it, but it is though. It's understated. It is understated. I feel like we don't give the devs enough credit for that, because it has changed the way that everyone plays this game in a big way.
Hmm.
And the fact that I can even tell these people that I've been talking to my whole life, and we backed a game with back in 2015, but I haven't been able to convince them to even jump or think or look at this game. But that the fact that this year they actually started playing, and are now playing when I'm not even online. Like they're not just playing to play with me; they're playing on their own.
They've been
They're telling me that
recruited.
they're telling me that they bought a C2 in game with in-game funds, and I'm just like, what? Like, dude, I've been for years. Y'all have been making fun of me for playing this game, but like this, something has changed this year, and I feel like it is that physicalization of cargo, and being able to do things together in that way.
Yeah, the interact. I mean, I think it was just in this event earlier today. We were running
Right.
an event, Jump Town. We had 26 people together. Some of these people were flying ships and fighting up above. Simultaneously, I was down on the ground, moving drugs from one location to another with 2 other people, while another ship was delivering some drugs to a space station. Another ship was getting ready to land and pick up some folks. We were exchanging water. We were doing ground security. We were tracking vehicles on the ground around us. Like, there were 26 people playing together, all doing different things. And the only other time I've played with that many people are in Eco, which is an interesting game. It's certainly, for
Hmm.
those who don't know, it's like a community-based, very simple game. Simple in the
Yeah.
sense of like graphics and fidelity, but it's very complex in gameplay. And then there's Battlefield. And like
That I
we're
was
all just
like
shooting
legit about
people.
to say that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you're shooting people, but what kind of flavor of shooting people do you want? Do you want to do it in the sky? Do you want to do it in a tank? And do you want to do it in like 5 to 4 person squads where you don't really feel like you need to talk to everybody else?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the big difference between Battlefield. And I say that because the people that I'm playing with, that I'm talking to you about, the in real life people,
Hmm.
we've been playing Battlefield since we were in middle school. So like we are very well acquainted with the idea of in a group coordinating together. But being able to do that with 26 people in voice chat, and like it still feels so unique
Yeah.
despite having played Battlefield for all these years.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And I guess just because the cargo refactor has taken place over such a long amount of time, if we had gotten, we got these inventory containers, which are huge. Like being able to store stuff in an actual movable, all accessible container is great. If we got that with the physicalized cargo, the freight elevators, the kiosk, the new tractor beams, the tractor tools on the vehicles all at once, I feel like this would have been huge. People would have lost it. But because
Yeah.
it's been spread out, it hasn't landed quite as hard. But I think that's one of the bigger changes this year and in the past 5 years, honestly.
I think it's going to start clicking with people. I think people are going to start watching like your streams, realizing that there's roles for people, like I was saying before, that there's meaningful decision making when you get into a ship. It's not just like I woke up from a bed and just got in my ship and left. You have to there's so many decisions between when you get out of your bed and when you're on your ship that can meaningfully change the way that you play the game. And I think when people realize that that can be fun, that is a thing that you can do with other people, and that can set you up for success in a really cool way, I think that's when it's really going to start clicking with people.
Yeah. You're right though. Something really did change for folks seeing that ability to actually have enjoyment. When did your friends start playing that you mentioned?
Okay, so the one that has kind of been waiting the longest, and actually my brother-in-law as well, they kind of came in at the game at the same time, despite hearing me talk about it forever. It wasn't until early November. It was early November, so it was even before
Okay.
you were able to sell other people's cargo. I think you still kind of had to do a little bit of like making sure that it was on the right person's ship to sell and that kind of a thing. Um, but that's when they started coming in, and I think it was like the idea that you could take down an ERT and there'd be like a bunch of valuable stuff on it. You can get a bunch of maize or grasping weevil eggs or something like that, and
Hmm.
then go to a very shady place where you might encounter other people, and then sell for big profit. That's when they started coming in for it, and
Okay.
yeah, I think that was early November, so pretty recently. And like I said, it didn't take them long to realize, you know what, I can earn a C2 in game. I'm gonna just like do these loops, get to know cargo routes, like go to Galog and stuff like that,
See,
and
yeah.
start to learn the game. And like that's like they're realizing that there's more than just pew pew shoot.
I wanna talk about CitizenCon because I do think that's part of it. But before we get into that, I want to talk about last year as well, 2022. So
Mm,
2022 was the biggest year for growth of the game, and it still is. Like it beats 23 by far. And I think a big part of that was Elite Dangerous having problems, and
mm,
we had like massive YouTubers pick up Star Citizen, right? And
hmm.
get it a bunch of attention. But
Yeah,
even then, like you said at the beginning of the podcast, it still didn't really feel like all of the eyes, or at least big eyes, were on the game. Like Starfield's always kind of had that, or Star. Oh my God,
that's a
Star
big part of the
Citizen.
year too, though. I think.
Star Citizen has. Oh yeah, I guess that might come up. Star Citizen has always had kind of a magnifying glass on it, but it's still
Mhm.
relatively unknown to the wider community. And those YouTubers didn't really, they made the game succeed and it was good, but they didn't change it on like the grand global scale. This year feels like the start of that, I think. What would you think? What would you say is different between this year and last?
Hmm. That's really interesting. I did take a hiatus from streaming last year too, which is really funny because it was a big year of growth, but it was also, I feel like there was some stagnation, I guess.
There always is, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really centered around like May and November when we're getting a
Right,
lot of good
right.
growth, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like some of the bigger things that happened last year, and maybe
Well,
that's just a part of it. That like core pillar technology and gameplay loops. Um, were not as big. 317, it was a long patch. Like there was a lot of different like versions of 317, and it's really hard to pin down to me like which one of those was the most successful.
yeah. No, that's fair. Does it, I mean, I feel like the obvious, or at least what I go to first is CitizenCon. And the reason I was kind of thinking this was I was wondering if that was what convinced your friend, or if this was something that was kind of over time your friend was starting to gain more interest in Star Citizen and CitizenCon kind of pushed them over, or
Ye-
was it really that event?
So they really weren't super interested in until a friend of mine. So I had another in real life friend. He came back to the game last year. So in 2022, he jumped back on. And he jumped back on in a major way. But he was mostly just doing ship bounties, and he's been consistent. But then CitizenCon this year happened, and it was the Star Engine trailer. Um, we sent that to our other friend and to my brother-in-law, and I think the grand scope, like being able to talk about Star Citizen without sounding like a lunatic, is kind of hard, right? Like it's kind of hard. But when you just give someone a video that's like, this is what Star Citizen is actually trying to do, you are on like Pupil the Planet. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
that kind of video makes a really big splash. Um, and I feel like the Star Engine trailer is another one of those. It's the value story of Star Citizen. Like when we're in marketing, we always talk about like what are you talking about in terms of like the value proposition,
Hmm.
and the value proposition is all over that video. It talks about the things that you can do in the sky, the things that they've been working on all these years. When someone says it's been 10 years, what have you actually done? You can just drop down that Star Engine video, and it's like this is what they've done, and it looks good. It tells the story in a very cool way. It's got amazing music to it. It's
Yeah.
very easy to watch, and I think that that's probably one of the better selling tools that they worked on this year, even if it wasn't straight from marketing.
Would you say that that was the turning point for them in terms of like we're talking about this year, something has changed, right? And we said that gameplay's changed and the game feels
Hmm.
different, and like
Hmm.
they've made some successes, but would you say that it comes down to that specific the Star Engine video?
I think it was because he didn't start asking questions until after the video, because he was like, wait, how much of this can you actually do? And it's like, okay, we can't do the farming, we can't go see the whales, but you can go from the planet, and you can go up into space, you can do salvage stuff, you can do like all the different like quantuming and all that kind of stuff. A lot of that is stuff that you can do now, and I think showing him and telling him about the different things that you could do is what really like brought him in. He's like, oh, so there is a role for me in this game. There is a purpose for me, and it's not just flying and shooting things, even though he does like that. But it's like the cargo stuff or meaningful group cargo. Like doing that is um, like a major selling point, and the fact that it's not just cargo in one way. There's so many different flavors to it. You can get like a box mission. You can do an ERT and then take the boxes off of that. You can learn trade routes. There are options,
Yeah.
and I think that seeing that that's the case now is big to him.
Why do you think they struggled so much to communicate? Like we all saw that trailer and we were like, "Oh yeah, this is sick. That looks like a really great representation of the game we're playing." And then like the reaction started over the next couple weeks and people were like,
Mhm.
"This is possible." And you realize that for some reason CIG just could not communicate to folks that they had already made these things. They
Right,
just don't run great. Why do you think
right.
that is?
Ah, that's a good question. I think it's because maybe it's because we constantly criticize marketing. I feel like with Star Citizen, but I think they actually do produce some of the more interesting videos that you can send to someone to say like this is what you can do in the game. Um, but I don't know if we as a community are really good at sharing marketing videos, because sometimes we feel that they're dishonest. Sometimes we're like, oh, like this is not how it actually feels to play the game.
Yeah, like the
Um,
patch videos,
the patch videos,
yeah.
exactly. Um, so maybe it just took the devs making something that was very dev focused and showing that all connected. Maybe that was a part of it. Maybe it's the dressing that they put up. Like it wasn't just like here's a tech video of the things you can do in Star Citizen. Is like, let's get the conductor out. Let's make it a beautiful, like one spline thing where it was going from one place to another.
Yeah.
It could have been the creative direction around it. I guess it could be a lot of things, but whatever it is, it's resonating with people right now, and
Yeah.
it's fascinating to see and encouraging. Because there's
It
things in that video that I'm still looking to see. You know?
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. I think the other one too that helped CitizenCon in general seemed like it was a big wake up call to kind of get people to pay more attention. But the other one that really helped was the Squadron 42 trailer. Like
Ah,
again, like you said, they showing kind of what they worked on. And I honestly like after all of the silence we got this year, as disappointing as it was, those two videos kind of made the whole year matter because
yeah,
it was better communication on a large scale than I think they've ever done.
yeah. I mean, some people might say communication at all, I guess, maybe, because not everyone likes to read. So the Squadron 42 monthly reports maybe don't mean as much to some people. But that Squadron 42 trailer there's so many people that are like Squadron 42, man, like I just focus on the PU. But
Yeah.
then they put out a trailer as compelling as what they did with all those big name actors, with the big sequences, with all the tech we've been wanting to see actually working. And I feel like that was what a lot of people needed to see to be like, okay,
Yeah.
so you're working on Squadron 42, it's feature complete. I will allow it now. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay,
And
well,
it looks good.
it's happening either way, but okay.
Seriously. Let me think. So yeah, I think those two things, that I guess really the Star Engine trailer and the Squadron 42 trailer, and of course server meshing were a big deal.
Uh,
Would you say that like this year has done more to answer the long-term questions we've had about Star Citizen, and that's helped you feel better about it, or are you still kind of hoping that we get better answers on some of this stuff?
I feel like CitizenCon coming back with the energy that it did and talking about those three things that you just talked about, maybe with the addition of base building, because that was a surprise and I think a very happy surprise for a lot of people. Um, I think those four things being talked about in the way that they were this year made a big difference because we all knew that they needed to do something more than just talk about how server meshing and the replication layer and the DGS work. Um, the DGS is whatever.
Yeah.
But like we've seen the video of what that looks like, kind of like in a motion PowerPoint kind of thing, but we needed to see it in a more tangible way. And I think we got that this year with that CitizenCon video of, oh my God, these are three different rooms. They're three different things talking to each other, but when something goes from one to another, it seems virtually seamless. And that's what we needed to see a practical application of that.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to the practical, like this is a Squadron 42 video, you will be playing this pretty soon or in the next 2 years, TM. So like seeing those things actualized in the way that they were this year is unique. I feel like it's more than we've seen in a long time. Like when was the last Squadron 42 trailer that we saw?
2021
Right?
visual
Like
teaser didn't show us
right.
much.
Exactly. So I think that this will satiate people for a while. The question is how much more needs to be injected into the community to keep people happy. And hopefully that matches up with what the devs are able to continue working on because, oftentimes we have expectations that are not always achievable by
Yeah,
development because development just takes time. Like
we
it's
saw
just
it this year.
right. Exactly. It just takes time. It takes work. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it doesn't feel good, but you got to push through it in order to get to the results that they have now. So I'm really curious to see what community expectation is like in 2024.
I'm hopeful after what we've seen, but it's just good to be cautious. The stuff we saw this year, I think, definitely helped this company round a corner. They have finally proven that they have been working on stuff, and I am excited, or I guess I'll find it entertaining to see whether or not people are like, I'm glad they took all this time.
Yeah.
Or if they will continue to be like, hey, you took all this time and it worked out for you, but so what? You should have done more. Because it's very easy to be frustrated as hell about all of this. And then at the end of it, when you see a game, be like, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense. I'm fair. But, a lot of people will say, no, that's not good enough. You made me go through all of this for that. And
I mean, I think that's the advantage of Star Citizen, honestly, because we talk about Starfield, like you said earlier, and Starfield was a lot of not seeing anything for a long time, and then it was in like June when we finally started to see like, oh, this is Starfield, right? That's when they put that big
once the
Xbox
year
reveal.
before, and then, yeah, this year they did another one.
Right, yeah. So I feel like with Star Citizen's method of like, it's in your hands now. Like, experience it as it is now. It will change, it will get better, but there's constantly something to see and try for yourself. And I feel like that's an advantage that Star Citizen has on a lot of things. Um, in addition to the fact that you're not doing it alone, like you're playing with other people. So, you could be as frustrated as you want with this game, and then you get into a game session and things, even if they're buggy, are entertaining. That can silence people, that can be like, you know what? It was buggy as hell, but we had a great night, like we had a
Yeah.
wonderful time.
Yeah,
Um,
that's fair.
that if they can achieve those moments for a lot of people in 2024, we'll see. We'll see if we can keep up that energy.
I got one last question, and then I want to talk to you about 2024. When it comes to the releases this year, we've talked a lot about features, but they've also released some ships. We had the Argo SRV, the Drake Vulture, the Fury MX, RSI Lynx, Hull C. There's a decent amount of ships in here, the Storm and more. How did you feel about the balance of ships versus features? Too many ships, not enough ships, too many features? Is that ever possible?
Well, it's really tough for me to judge that because I'm so thankful and happy with the tier 0, tier 1, whatever you want to call it, implementation of salvage. So we got a whole new game loop and a whole new ship uh, with that game loop, in addition to a long time ship finally being able to be used for what it's supposed to be used for. And I don't think that's going to be a thing that we get every year. I don't know if it's always going to be like, yo, this new ship that we've been looking forward to seeing this gameplay, this coming out. So like that happened this year. And that was enough to be like, yo, this is exciting to see like salvaging come in. And then to a further extent, structural salvaging, even though everyone knows that that's like tier -1. Or whatever you want to call it. Like there's more to see from that. But man, that the Vulture really kind of stuck a pin into my expectations and what I was really happy to see. The rest of it was kind of like, oh, okay. The Hull C was awesome, but is also kind of in a hard place like right now. Like it's not.
Yeah.
There's a lot of issues with it. So that's one of those ones where I'm like, that's going to get better over time. But adding tractor beams and the SRV, also a thing that we've been looking for. So like we got two main like maybe not game loops, but features that came out this year. That not only applied to one ship, but applied to ships that were even already released. And I feel like that's very unique to 2023.
It was definitely better in delivering ships that made a difference. I mean, like we haven't had salvage, right? And then we also got to see improvements in cargo ships. So like this was a year that was way more diverse in what new ships unlocked than before. Totally agree with you there.
So I to me, honestly, this was a great year for ships. Especially if you are into more than just the pew pew. Like there's always going to be pew pew ships that come out. If you want to go blast and blow up something.
Yeah.
But for those who are like, kind of a synergistic complement with the cargo features that we saw this year, I feel like with the C1 coming in with a tractor beam, even like, the 350R or whatever, like all these other ships that came in with that tractor beam working now, that's pretty huge. And then that Vulture. To me, the Vulture and the Reclaimer are big wins for this year. So
yeah, Vulture was a big one for sure.
Yeah.
For anybody who's counting, I counted about 18 new ships this year, or new vehicles rather, with 6 of them being concepts. So they essentially took 12 ships or vehicles off the backlog, I believe. Or no, that's not true. 12 ships or vehicles off the backlog, as well as straight to flyyables. So a couple off the backlog, like the Lynx, the X1s, the SRV, the Hull C, the Vulture are good, but the Storm, the Furies, those are new additions. So
yeah, and I mean, there's places for them. Some maybe more successful than others, but it's just kind of one of those things where Star Citizen likes to provide you flavors of things. So if you like, the racing flavor of Kruger Intergalactic, and you want to do Merlin and Archimedes stuff, you can do that, or you could do Fury stuff.
yeah,
But either way, more flavors isn't a bad thing. It just gives people more options.
yeah. Now let's to finish things up, because we gotta wrap up here soon. Let's talk about 2024.
Ooh.
23 was a cool year. It was up and down. We missed a lot of the features we were hoping for from the letter from the chairman, also from the CitizenCon prior. But we saw those features pop up again in CitizenCon, and now they are coming out and giving us a sort of a 6-month outlook on the first half of next year. Just taking all that at face value, after talking about the letter from the chairman and looking at the year we've seen, how confident are you feeling about these features coming in the first 6 months?
Man, you putting me on the spot. I'm
Oh
like now,
yeah,
I'm like maybe I
we're
should
gonna
have been on this
record this.
episode. Oh frick, people are just gonna link to this part. Okay. Man, okay, so I've like literally in the last 2 seconds I started like getting kind of nervous, and then like I went through this whole like thing in like 2 seconds where I was like, but what should I be nervous about? Because some of this stuff is coming from Squadron 42. So the fact that it's already been developed, hopefully that makes it easier to bring into the PU. So that gives me some confidence. But at the same time, it's easy to say, especially people like us online sitting in our gamer chairs just saying, oh, they made that in Squadron 42. It'll be easy to bring that into the PU. Like, who knows? What if it's not? Like, what if it requires some major stripping out of other stuff and stuff breaks? So
Yeah.
there's that. And then coupled
And
with
they
the
also
fact
said that
that,
last year.
right, exactly. Like, these are things that they say, even though they say they hate putting out dates, they will say these things, and then um, we'll just have to hope,
Yeah.
you know? So I do have some hope that the stuff that was in Squadron 42 makes its way in. We've already kind of seen that with some of the hairstyles. Um, we'll see more of that with some of the things that I'm really looking forward to. But I in terms of my confidence, I would say um, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful,
Okay.
but also not pinning my future on it.
Well, do you think that the momentum they've built this year was kind of gearing us up for a better 24, or does it feel like it's just kind of the natural ebb and flow of Star Citizen? Like, do you think next year is going to continue this trend people have noticed over the last couple months?
That's the thing. I feel like every team works on things differently. So we saw a lot come in from the Arena Commander team. They did a lot of heavy lifting for what we consider progress for this year too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the stuff that we're looking for, the things that we're expecting, are some really big things. Like
Yeah.
Moby-Glass, like they got to nail that. And we've seen like some really great stuff out of CitizenCon, but we've all been waiting for the Moby-Glass and the star map to get better. So we like when they bring that out, it's really gotta work, you know. And
Yeah,
then
and the big thing about
uh,
the Moby-Glass is all the apps that we have that have to be reworked. And I've been wondering this. This is something that I was bringing up last year during UI stuff. The Moby-Glass, the Bounty Hunting V2 is based on a tracking app that has to go in the Moby-Glass, which would have to be the new style, so they couldn't put it in the old Moby-Glass. So the new Moby-Glass has to exist for bounty hunting, for the new shopping app, for all of this stuff. So they can't update one app at a time. We're going to see an
exactly.
entirely new menu enter the game all at once.
And when
That's
you
a
have
lot.
that many interconnected things, that's the thing that makes me nervous. Like that's the kind of stuff that makes me think, and well, not nervous as in like, oh no, it might not come out. Who cares? Like we all live our lives, whatever.
Hmm. Hmm.
But like in terms of expectation, it makes me think maybe as a player and a person who's backed this game for a long time, it would be more responsible for me to think maybe that can cook for just a little bit longer or something. At least until we see an ISC and hear what it's like for them to actually like kind of be seeing that working in the PU. But
Yeah.
we haven't seen that yet. We've seen it work in Squadron 42, but we haven't seen an ISC or anything like that where it's working in the PU, I don't think. So
That's a big one.
uh,
Yeah, I think seeing it in ISC is a big thing. But also it's good to remember they're moving a lot of people over from Squadron 42 now. That's kind of, I think, the big thing people are depending on making a difference. And we don't know exactly how quickly that'll happen. We probably won't know till the end of January, but that could mean a lot more development for us than we've ever been used to. That's like
definitely,
800, 900 new devs working on Star Citizen.
which would be
Just
great. I mean,
like
like
that.
that would be wonderful. And if it goes as smoothly as I would hope, I would feel that confidence, and I think that's another point for these things happening. Um, but so I've worked in software development, not as a software developer. I'm not going to speak for CIG or anything like that, but I know
Mhm.
that's oftentimes when people want more people to like help with a problem, um, it can definitely help. It'll definitely relieve, but there is kind of a re-revving of the engine, like getting someone back into a flow takes
Yeah.
time. It's not always lickety split like you got this new developer on, everything is better now. Sometimes it's like, oh wait, I need to go through the process documents and see how you guys are doing your thing differently than how we're doing our thing.
Mhm.
Hopefully there's like, a really easy handoff or transition for all those people coming from Squadron 42. But people are people and processes are not perfect.
Yeah.
So, if it does help, great. If it takes a little bit longer, I'm not going to be like, you guys promised. It's like, this is a very human game being made, like sometimes things just take time. Even though
Yeah.
we see the number go up, it doesn't mean that everything starts going up right away. So we'll see.
I'm going off of the way that they were able to incorporate Turbulent and the Montreal studio into their workflow. They
Mm,
blew my estimates away. So I
that's
I
good.
I do think that they'll be able to get this kind of up and going pretty quickly. Maybe not in the space of a couple months, which is why we're not seeing things now, but by end of first half of next year, I could see some of these things coming in for sure.
Oh
You already
yeah.
mentioned that. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, yeah, and I'm man, I'm excited for it. If even like half of these things happened, it would be huge for the game.
That's
Like
what I said about
huge.
the letter from the chairman last year.
Oh, no. Time is repeating.
I was like, oh yeah, we'll get at least half. It'll be great. Freaking, oh God, I am, yeah, definite
We'll
learning
see.
opportunity for me. But
Yeah.
you've mentioned the star map and the Mobi-Glass.
Hmm.
Just to finish everything off today, what are some other highlights that they've said are coming in that first half of next year? Some of the things people can get really excited for in the next update, maybe two updates.
A big thing for me is persistent hangars and freight elevators. If we're able to get our things back, things that people have bought with real money, I think that will take away a lot of the negative platitudes that people have about this game. In addition to the fact that like starting up an operation will hopefully just be easier. Like if you can just get your tonk, put that in your C2 all from the same hangar, like
Yeah.
that cuts down so much time. You as a streamer of all people know that like just getting people organized to make these things happen just takes so much time. So anything that
Yes.
we can do to kind of get these processes in a smoother state, huge for people that like, have limited time to get these things going. So that would be a big one. Updated EVA is one that I feel like as soon as you have to do anything out in space, you realize, yes, I want this to be better.
Oh my God,
So
EVA.
I know, right? So like that one would be really huge. Um, Character customizer. If we could see some of those black hairstyles come into the game, that would be great. I don't know if that's coming in the first half of with that character customizer. We'll see, but it would be really awesome just to be able to see more and varied like DNA types in that
Yeah.
game
Yeah,
from
definitely.
what the so that would be wonderful. And then distribution centers. They said distribution centers, like the big ones on planets.
Yeah.
Do you
Those
think that
are,
can happen?
I do. Yeah, absolutely.
That would be huge because I mean, like, I talked to you about like having come from Destiny 2 most immediately, before playing Star Citizen as heavy as I do now.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I still miss about playing Destiny 2 is just getting a whole bunch of friends together and doing a raid where we know exactly what we're trying to do. It's not something that we're all just like, hey, let's see if we can come up with this game loop ourselves or whatever, but just getting a mission that we're all a part of and doing a raid. If that comes in with distribution centers, it might not, but if it does come in at the same time, that would be really exciting for gameplay. Like
Yeah.
really exciting.
I think that with stability, we say this a lot with certain features, but if you threw in stability and added that and gave us like a good FPS experience, that's enough for a lot of people.
Right?
That's essentially that's Destiny, but in a different universe. I mean, that's disrespectful to the people working on Destiny. Obviously, there's a lot more going on there, but like that
For
is
sure.
you're running raids every day. You could just go and fly down to these places and experience different scenarios each time. And
Yep.
yeah, man, I think those are possible because those UGFs, they started out as the UGFs and they had those
Mhm.
tier 1 to be done fairly quickly, like within a year and a half. It's really just that upper administrative and entrance area that they had to work on past that. So I wouldn't say they're done now, but I could 100% see those coming in first half. It's the missions that would be more what's going
Yeah,
on
see,
there.
that's a big thing because, like, even as they release things right now, we just got all those new settlements, and you were streaming the other day. Like, need to go back watch his VODs; they're really good.
Thank you.
But like you and Astropub were touring some of those derelict outposts, and you got to the top of one of them, and you just looked down, and you were like, "I see the potential. Like, I see the potential of like squads taking different areas, working in groups and stuff like that." And it's nice to see it now. It would be nice to see the UGFs now, but with the gameplay too. So it's not
Yeah.
just like, oh, this is really cool. I see the potential. It's like the potential is here right now. Like that would. So I don't know how they're going to release it. They might just release the space and then release the missions because I think those are separate teams. Um, so we'll see. But if they can bring those in a meaningful way, I would be very, very happy.
They're massive. I mean, these locations are giving us as much space as a city, as a landing zone, and they're completely mission oriented. And they said every type of gameplay will be available down there.
They did say that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So these
Like,
are
yeah.
going to be like the gameplay caches of Star
Mhm.
Citizen. I think these are one of the archetypes like landing zones, outposts, derelicts, and distribution centers. Maybe there's one or two others, but space
Yeah.
stations, I think. But this
Yeah.
is one of them. And this is going to be huge for the game.
Absolutely.
That's a good one. Good
Absolutely.
pick. Good pick.
So those are mine. Those are mine right now.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I'm a really big fan of all the FPS improvements we're looking at, the lens and visor, the
Mhm.
reloading updates, the scope, the cursor, like all of the stuff that's going to make this feel more like an actual FPS experience than just, oh yeah, here's a character, go test out Star Citizen.
I mean, that is definitely one of the major things that when people come into this game, they realize, oh, I just need to kind of gloss over this right now. That you
Movement's
can
a
get
little
into arena
janky.
command. Exactly. Yeah. It just doesn't feel as tight of an experience as when you're like you talk about Halo all the time. That is a tight experience. When you get in there and you press reload, you don't expect your character to be like, I don't, the bullets in here, the gun is not shooting.
I
Like,
reloaded and it didn't reload.
right, like, it's gonna shoot every time, so, like,
Yeah.
that's one thing where it's like, you bring a new person into this game and they're like, you're gonna kinda have to look over that part for now, like, so, if anything that they can do to make that a tighter experience, I'm with you, like,
Yeah,
that'll help the game.
definitely. And then another thing besides the star map, which I feel goes without saying, another thing that's kind of stealthy that they're gonna try and do is the the charge and discharge and heat in weapons, which means we're finally gonna get those volt parallax weapons that we've been seeing.
Mm,
They're the coolest looking guns we've seen about this game for the last 3 years, and we've only seen them in concept art. So I'm really excited to see those come into the game because that also, to me, helps to build on that polished sort of clicking experience you're talking about in Halo. When you go and you grab a plasma pistol and you hold the trigger, it charges up and you can feel the power and you can hear it, and like you let it go and it's all the effects are there. We
yeah,
don't have that in Star Citizen. We have
no,
some alt fire modes, but there's nothing that feels like weapons have true character. And I think this
yeah.
charge and drain stuff is going to really help weapons feel more significant, especially those, electric and
Yeah.
plasma weapons.
And it seems like it's like that's to me seems like one of those doable things because they're already on that path in 322. They made some very big changes to how weapons handle and how much ammo is in them and what they do for damage. So I think they're really looking to tighten up that experience, and I'm really hopeful for that too.
Yeah. All right, man. Abdi, thank you so much for joining me today. I've been wanting to get you on an episode for a while. I'm glad we got to do the Christmas special and like put you in the hot seat, and everybody can come back and clip these episodes and talk about how Abdi told us that we were going to get the star map in the first half and it's not on Space Tomato.
Roast me, y'all. Roast me.
so if you could let people know where they can send all their hate mail and come and harass you in chat, before we go,
Yeah,
please
so
do.
Space Tomato. I'm just kidding. AbdiYohan. So I'm AbdiYohan everywhere. Twitch.tv/AbdiYohan. I'm also on Twitter. So Twitter.com/.com/AbdiYohan. And then, as I said before, I'm a Soul Citizen. Fast Card, if you're watching, I didn't forget to say it this time. He literally roasted me in DMs last time. He was like, "You didn't say you're a Soul Citizen." I was like, "I'm sorry." I was like, "I
He's
don't
got it
know." I got it this time. I
twice
got it
now. Yeah,
twice.
you better know.
So yeah, definitely check out Soul Citizens. They're on YouTube. We're on YouTube and Twitch. So twitch.tv/Soul Citizens, and then also on YouTube as well. So catch us
Yeah.
there. We got shows 3 times a week. Thursdays, Saturdays, Sundays, and then the Discord for Soul Citizens is always hopping. I have a Discord too, but I'm going to make you work to find it because it's very small and I like it that way.
Yeah, it's nice. A little circle.
It's just a
Um,
little circle.
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel that. I
Yeah.
also have shown up on Soul Citizens. It's always a good time to come and chat with the folks. The times often don't work out when I'm in Turkey, but I do try and do it when
Mm,
I'm here in the US. And also, man, we gotta try and get a stream in together. I'm trying to do more streams next year with other people, so we'll have to schedule
absolutely.
something like that out.
Yeah, dude, I would be happy if you want me to pilot. I know you want to do things other than piloting. I'd be happy to pilot
You know me.
and have you do what you got to do, whether it be cargo, tractor beam, FPS, whatever. Like, let's make it happen.
Cool, man. Well, thanks
Cool.
again for coming on. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really a huge blessing to be here, and I really appreciate what you do. I know I speak for the entire community when I say thank you for everything that you do, for making a space for us to talk about things in this garden, uh, whether it be Star Citizen or other space things. It's just like a nice, chill place to be able to do that. So thank you for fostering that community.
Well, I am grateful to the community for making it possible. That's Star Citizen wouldn't be happening unless all these people, dare I say it, held the line. So with that, thank you all for joining me today. As always, you could find this ad-free on the audio platforms of your choice. Citizen Central is our other podcast. It's monthly, and you can find that as well. Just do a little search wherever you are. And all of you to YouTube who came and watched our beautiful faces and our lovely little Christmas hat. Thank you so much for coming. Hope you enjoyed this year of Star Citizen. From here on, we're talking all about things coming up, so subscribe for more of that. And I'll see you all next week in 2024. Merry Christmas. Merry Chrysler.
Merry
Cheers.
Merry Chrysler. Merry Crimbus.